My name is Serenity, and I'm 36 years old. For 12 years, I've poured my heart into cooking every holiday meal for my family. My daughter Lily is 9 and has autism. She's the light of my life. I never expected that my own mother would send a text excluding her from our family gathering. Even worse, my sister still expected me to cook for everyone. The betrayal cut deep, but I didn't make a scene. Let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe to hear what I did instead. I grew up in a bustling household in Minnesota, where food was always the centerpiece of our gatherings. My grandmother Margaret was the undisputed queen of the kitchen. While other kids played outside, I was right beside her, learning how to make her famous apple pie with the perfect flaky crust. She had this intuition about flavors that seemed magical to me. "You have the gift, Serenity," she would say, watching me adjust seasonings without measuring. "Not everyone can feel cooking in their soul." By the time I was 15, I could prepare an entire Thanksgiving dinner under her watchful eye. She beamed with pride, telling everyone I had surpassed even her skills. Those moments in the kitchen with my grandmother were when I felt most seen and valued. When I turned 24, everything changed. Grandmother developed severe arthritis, making it too painful for her to stand at the stove for hours. That Thanksgiving, she called me 3 days before the holiday. "Serenity, I need you to take over this year," she said, her voice strained with both pain and disappointment. "The family needs your gift now." I remember feeling both honored and terrified. This wasn't just cooking. It was maintaining the thread that held our family traditions together. 22 people were counting on me. I spent 3 days preparing, barely sleeping, determined not to let my grandmother down. The meal was a triumph. Everyone raved about the turkey, saying it was even more tender than usual. My grandmother sat at the head of the table, her eyes glistening with tears of pride. From that day forward, holiday cooking became my responsibility, my contribution, my identity within our family. 2 years later, I met Brian at a friend's birthday party. He was tall with kind eyes and a genuine laugh that made everyone around him feel comfortable. On our third date, I cooked for him. Nothing fancy, just a simple pasta dish. He took one bite and looked at me with such appreciation. "This is incredible," he said. "You have a real talent." Brian understood my passion for cooking in a way nobody else had since my grandmother. He never complained about the grocery bills or the hours I spent testing recipes. Instead, he would wash dishes as I worked, occasionally stealing tastes and offering honest feedback. We married after 18 months of dating, and I was ecstatic when I became pregnant just a year later. The entire family was thrilled. This would be the first grandchild for my parents, Catherine and James. My sister Amelia, 2 years younger than me, threw an elaborate baby shower where she announced she too was trying to start a family. When Lily was born, she had a full head of dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything. She rarely cried, but had this intense gaze that made people comment that she seemed so aware for a newborn. Brian and I were besotted with her. The first holiday season with Lily was magical. At 4 months old, she was passed around the table like a precious treasure. I cooked with her strapped to my chest in a baby carrier, somehow managing to coordinate the entire meal while tending to her needs. Everyone marveled at my ability to balance motherhood and my cooking responsibilities. "Super Mom," my brother Noah called me, raising a glass and toast. I glowed with pride, feeling like I was succeeding at everything that mattered. By Lily's second Christmas, we noticed differences in her development. She wasn't babbling much and seemed overwhelmed by the holiday lights and sounds. She would cover her ears during family conversations and became inconsolable when multiple people tried to interact with her at once. "She's just shy," my mother would say dismissively. "Amelia's boy Jackson is already saying full sentences, and he's 3 months younger." Those comparisons stung, but I brushed them aside. Every child develops differently, I told myself. But deep down, I knew something was different about Lily. The diagnosis came shortly after Lily turned 3, autism spectrum disorder. The developmental pediatrician explained it compassionately, providing resources and recommending early interventions. Brian and I cried together that night after Lily went to sleep, not from disappointment, but from fear about whether we could give her everything she needed. I threw myself into research learning everything I could about autism and sensory processing. Cooking, which had always been my passion, now became something more, a constant in our changing world, a way to maintain normalcy when everything else felt uncertain. That year, I approached the holidays with new determination. I would still create the perfect meal, but I would also ensure Lily had what she needed to feel comfortable. I prepared a separate quiet room at my mother's house, where Lily could retreat if the stimulation became too much. I brought headphones to dampen the noise, and packed special foods that accommodated her sensory preferences. My sister Amelia, now with 2 children of her own, seemed supportive initially. "We'll do whatever Lily needs," she said. But I noticed her subtle eye rolls when Lily wouldn't accept hugs, or when I explained why certain accommodations were necessary. My brother Noah was more direct in his confusion. "Can't you just make her behave for one day?" he asked after Lily had a meltdown during present opening. "Jackson and Emma don't act like that." My mother, Catherine, gradually became less enthusiastic about hosting gatherings as Lily's needs became more apparent. "It's just so much work to Lily-proof the house," she complained once, not realizing I could hear her talking to my father. Brian's mother, Diana, was perhaps the most difficult. A retired school teacher, she had rigid ideas about child rearing and discipline. "In my day, we didn't have all these diagnoses," she would say. "Children behaved because they were expected to behave." Each year, cooking elaborate holiday meals became increasingly exhausting. Not because of the food preparation, that remained my sanctuary, but because of the emotional labor of managing everyone's expectations while protecting Lily. Still, I persisted, believing that maintaining these traditions was crucial for our family bonds. "Next year will be easier," I told myself every January as I packed away the holiday decorations. "Next year, they'll understand her better." But despite 12 years of holidays centered around my cooking, understanding seemed further away than ever. As Lily grew, her autism presented specific challenges around the holidays that required careful navigation. The sensory overload from multiple conversations, Christmas music, flashing lights, and unfamiliar food smells could quickly become overwhelming for her. Large gatherings of relatives, many whom she only saw a few times a year, created anxiety that could trigger meltdowns or cause her to shut down completely. By age 5, Lily had developed coping mechanisms for some situations. She would bring her weighted blanket to family gatherings and wrap herself tightly when she felt overwhelmed. She wore noise-canceling headphones during the noisiest parts of celebrations. But these adaptations, necessary for her well-being, often drew negative attention from relatives. "Does she have to wear those headphones at the dinner table?" my mother would ask. "It makes it seem like she doesn't want to be part of the family conversation." "The blanket is dragging on the floor, it's going to get dirty," Amelia would point out, not understanding that the slight pressure was helping Lily stay regulated. I became an expert at creating sensory-friendly zones within holiday chaos. I'd arrive early to set up a quiet corner in my mother's living room with Lily's comfort items. I'd dim certain lights that I knew bothered her, and negotiate with my mother about keeping the Christmas music at a lower volume. One Christmas, when Lily was 6, my brother Noah's wife Tessa complained that their children weren't allowed to open presents at normal volume because it might set Lily off. "It just doesn't seem fair to make everyone else's kids suppress their excitement," she whispered to Noah loud enough that I could hear from the kitchen. "Christmas is for children after all." Brian tried to explain to his family about sensory processing differences, but they often dismissed his explanations as excuses for permissive parenting. "Children need structure," his mother Diana insisted. "All this catering to her every need isn't doing her any favors in the long run." Not everyone was unsupportive. My Uncle Jack, my father's brother, made genuine efforts to connect with Lily on her terms. He noticed she was fascinated by his pocket watch and would let her hold it, showing her how the mechanism worked. He spoke to her in a calm, direct manner that she responded to well. "She's not being difficult," he told my mother once. "She's navigating a world that wasn't built for her brain. That takes courage." I treasured Uncle Jack's understanding, but such moments of true acceptance were rare. As Lily's needs became clearer, Brian's work demands grew increasingly intense. He had been promoted to regional manager at his company, which meant more travel and longer hours. While the financial security was welcome, especially with Lily's therapy costs, his absence left me handling more of the parenting and family navigation alone. "I'm sorry I can't be there for the planning meeting with your mom," he said before last Thanksgiving. "But I know you'll handle it perfectly. You always do." His confidence in me was both a compliment and a burden. I became the sole interpreter of Lily's needs to a family that was growing less patient with each passing year. Food became my way of bridging the gap. I developed holiday menus that included dishes Lily could eat alongside traditional favorites. I made sure there was always plain turkey without herbs for her texture sensitivities and mashed potatoes without lumps. I prepared her macaroni and cheese with the specific brand of cheese she tolerated, bringing it in a separate container to heat at my mother's house. "Do we really need two versions of everything?" my sister Amelia asked one year as I unloaded my car full of food containers. It seems excessive. What Amelia didn't understand was that I wasn't just cooking for Lily. I was creating a way for her to participate in family traditions on her own terms. Last Thanksgiving was particularly difficult. I overheard my sister-in-law Tessa talking to my sister Amelia in the hallway, while I was checking on Lily in the quiet room. "I know she's family, but holidays are so stressful with Lily here," Tessa said. "Remember how nice Easter was when they couldn't come because she was sick?" "I know," Amelia replied. "Mom's exhausted from Lily-proofing everything, and Serenity's so sensitive about it all." I froze, turkey baster in hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Was this how they all felt? That holidays would be better without my daughter present? I tried to educate my family about autism whenever I could, sharing articles and videos I thought might help them understand. I invited them to attend Lily's school performances, where her classmates were all neurodiverse in various ways. Few ever came. "We're just so busy with the kids' activities," was Amelia's usual excuse. Her children Jackson and Emma were involved in multiple sports and clubs, their achievements regularly celebrated at family gatherings. The contrast between how my family treated Lily and how they treated her cousins became increasingly painful to witness. Jackson's soccer trophies warranted lengthy discussions, while Lily's achievement of finally being able to tolerate a restaurant meal without headphones went unacknowledged. As the years passed, I found myself growing resentful of the imbalance. I spent weeks planning shopping and cooking for holidays. I drove to 3 different stores to find ingredients. I prepared dishes that accommodated everyone's preferences and dietary restrictions. I transported hot food across town, reheated, and served it, and often cleaned up afterward. Yet, despite all this effort, my child was treated as an inconvenience, her needs seen as impositions rather than valid requirements. "Next year will be different," I kept telling myself. But as I began planning for this year's holiday season, I had no idea just how different things would actually become. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning in early November. Lily had just left for school, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee making my preliminary shopping list for Thanksgiving. After 12 years, I had the planning down to a science, knowing exactly which items would be on sale, when which components could be prepared and frozen ahead of time, and how to coordinate oven space for maximum efficiency. My phone pinged with a text from my mother. I expected it to be about coordination for the upcoming holiday, maybe asking about the menu or timing. Instead, what I read made my coffee go cold in my hands. "Serenity, we need to talk about Thanksgiving this year. Diana and Robert are coming with Brian's siblings, so we're hosting the in-laws. With so many people, there's really no room for you and Lily. I hope you understand." I stared at the message, reading it over and over, certain I must be misinterpreting something. My family had a large home with plenty of space. We'd had up to 30 people for holidays in the past. No room made no sense. My hands were trembling as I typed back, "Mom, what do you mean there's no room? We always come for Thanksgiving. Is something else going on?" The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times, as if she was writing and rewriting her response. Finally, it came through. Diana mentioned that holidays might be less stressful for everyone without Lily's disruptions. I know that sounds harsh, but last year was difficult with her meltdown during dinner. We thought this might be easier for everyone, including Lily. I felt physically ill, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. My mother-in-law had suggested excluding my child, and my own mother had agreed to it. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. Before I could respond, another message came through. "We still love you both very much. This is just for this one holiday." One holiday. As if that made it acceptable to exclude a child from her family. I set my phone down and walked to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face as tears began streaming down my cheeks. When I felt composed enough, I called Brian at work. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice distracted. "Hey, can I call you back? I'm heading into a meeting." "Your mother convinced my parents to uninvite Lily and me from Thanksgiving," I said, my voice cracking. There was a pause then. "What? That can't be right. Let me call Mom and figure out what's happening. I'll call you back in an hour." He hung up before I could say anything else. I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by my meticulous holiday planning notes, feeling completely unmoored. My phone pinged again. This time it was my sister Amelia. "Hey Mom, just told me about the Thanksgiving change. That really sucks and I'm sorry. But you'll still cook, right? Everyone's counting on your turkey and pies. You could drop everything off the day before and we'll heat it up." I read her message twice, not quite believing what I was seeing. They still wanted my cooking, just not my daughter. I was good enough to provide the meal, but not to have my child at the table where it would be served. I didn't respond to Amelia. I couldn't formulate words that wouldn't be filled with rage. Instead, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by cookbooks and family recipes passed down through generations and let the full weight of the situation sink in. For 12 years, I had bent over backward to accommodate everyone else's needs and preferences. I had modified recipes for Uncle Peter's diabetes and Cousin Sarah's gluten intolerance. I had made special vegetarian options when Amelia went through her no-meat phase. I had carefully curated wine selections to please my father's increasingly sophisticated palate, all while my own child's needs were treated as impositions rather than valid requirements for her participation. The irony was that Lily had been doing so much better at recent gatherings. Her therapies were working. We had developed better coping strategies. Last year's meltdown that my mother referenced had been relatively minor. Lily had become overwhelmed when someone turned the TV on loudly during dinner, and she had covered her ears and rocked for a few minutes until I could help her regulate. It was hardly the disruption my mother and Diana were making it out to be. My phone rang. It was Brian calling back much sooner than the hour he'd promised. "I talked to my mom," he said, his voice tight. "She said she was just trying to make things easier for everyone, that she thought Lily might be happier in a less stimulating environment." "And you believe that?" I asked. "I don't know what to believe," he admitted. "Mom can be overbearing, but would she really try to exclude Lily deliberately?" His uncertainty was another wound. After 9 years of parenting our autistic daughter together, he was still giving his mother the benefit of the doubt when it came to her treatment of Lily. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I looked down at my shopping list, meal timelines, and recipe notes. 12 years of tradition, effort, and family obligations spread out before me. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. "But I'm not making a scene. Not yet, anyway." The days following my mother's text plunged me into an internal war between rage and my lifelong tendency to keep peace at any cost. I'd always been the mediator in the family, the one who smoothed ruffled feathers and found compromises. This role had become even more pronounced after Lily's diagnosis, as I constantly negotiated for her inclusion, while trying not to inconvenience anyone. But this time was different. This wasn't about accommodating a sensory need or explaining a behavioral challenge. My family had decided my daughter was too much trouble to include, while still expecting to enjoy the fruits of my labor. As I watched Lily that evening, carefully lining up her colored pencils before starting her homework, memories of past slights flooded back with new clarity. I remembered my mother asking if we could leave Lily with a sitter for my father's retirement dinner. I recalled Amelia scheduling her son's birthday party during Lily's regular therapy time, then acting put out when we arrived late. I thought about how Brian's parents always gave Lily educational toys for Christmas, as if her autism was something she could study her way out of, while her cousins received fun gifts. In each instance, I had made excuses for their behavior. I had twisted myself into knots trying to see things from their perspective. I had swallowed my hurt for the sake of family harmony. "Mom, can I have apple slices?" Lily asked, looking up from her careful work. "Of course, sweetie," I replied, pushing aside my turmoil to cut the apple exactly as she preferred. 8 equal slices, all peel removed, arranged in a perfect circle on her blue plate. That night, after Lily went to bed, I found myself searching online, "Family Excluding Autistic Child Holiday." The results were heartbreaking. So many stories similar to mine. So many parents feeling forced to choose between extended family and protecting their children. I read deep into the night, tears streaming down my face. But among the pain, I also found strength. Stories of parents who had established boundaries, created new traditions, and found unexpected support. Parents who had chosen their children's well-being over family expectations and discovered joy on the other side of that difficult decision. The next day, I called Dr. Martinez, my therapist. I'd started seeing her 2 years ago, when the stress of balancing everyone's needs had led to debilitating anxiety attacks. "They've crossed a line," she said after I explained the situation. "Your anger is completely justified, Serenity. The question now is how you want to respond in a way that honors your values and protects both you and Lily." "I've spent my whole life trying not to rock the boat," I admitted. "The thought of confrontation makes me physically ill." "Sometimes the boat needs rocking," she replied gently, "especially when staying silent harms someone you love." That evening, when Brian came home, I was ready to talk. We sat on the back porch, mugs of tea, warming our hands against the November chill. "I can't cook for them if they won't include Lily," I said plainly. Brian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I understand how you feel. I'm upset too. But that's my family too, and the holidays are important." "And what about our family?" I interrupted. "What message are we sending Lily if we go along with this? That she's only worthy of inclusion when it's convenient for everyone else." "She wouldn't know if we just dropped the food off," he suggested weakly. "I would know," I said, my voice firm. "And eventually she would know too. Children always figure these things out." Brian was silent for a long moment. "I'm caught in the middle here, Serenity. Between my parents and you." "No," I corrected him. "You're caught between people who want to exclude your daughter and people who want to protect her. That's not the middle. There is no middle." I could see the conflict in his eyes, the struggle between the peacekeeping role he'd also adopted and the clear moral choice before him. We left the conversation unresolved, both needing time to process. The next day, I spoke with Lily's behavioral therapist, Dr. Cohen, during our regular session. I was careful to talk while Lily was engaged in an activity in another part of the clinic. "Boundaries are essential, not just for your well-being, but for Lily's development," Dr. Cohen advised. "Children internalize how they see others treat them. If she senses you accepting her exclusion, even indirectly, it could impact her self-worth." That evening, I joined an online support group for parents of autistic children. I shared my situation and was overwhelmed by the immediate understanding and encouragement. "You're not being unreasonable," wrote one mother. "Your family is showing you who they are and what they value. Believe them." "We created our own holiday traditions," another parent shared. "It was hard the first year, but now we have celebrations that actually work for our family, instead of trying to force ourselves into neurotypical expectations." As I read their stories and advice, something shifted inside me. The guilt and obligation that had driven me for years began to give way to resolve. I wasn't just Serenity, the family cook, the peacekeeper, the accommodator. I was also Lily's mother, her advocate, her safe harbor in a world that often misunderstood her. And in that role, I couldn't fail her. The next morning, I made Lily's favorite breakfast, silver dollar pancakes with strawberry eyes and a banana smile. As she methodically ate each piece in her preferred order, I watched her with new clarity. "We might do something different for Thanksgiving this year," I told her casually. "Would you like that?" She considered this as she carefully cut her next pancake piece. "Can we still have mashed potatoes without lumps?" "Absolutely, I promised, and we can make them together." Her face brightened. "I like cooking with you. It's quiet and it smells good." In that moment, my decision crystallized. We would create something new, a celebration built around Lily's comfort and our small family's joy, rather than obligation and tradition. I picked up my phone no longer trembling with hurt, but steady with purpose, and began making a different kind of plan. Over the next week, I crafted a response to my family that was both firm and thoughtful. I wanted to make my boundaries clear without burning bridges completely. After several drafts and consultations with my therapist, I sent a group text to my parents' sister and Brian's parents. After careful consideration, I've decided that Brian, Lily, and I will be celebrating Thanksgiving separately this year. While I've enjoyed cooking for our family gatherings for the past 12 years, I cannot provide food for an event that explicitly excludes my daughter. Lily is not an accommodation or an inconvenience. She is a member of this family. We are a package deal. I hope in time we can find a way to come together that respects and includes everyone. Wishing you all a peaceful holiday. I hit send before I could second guess myself, then turned off notifications and focused on creating a special Thanksgiving plan for our immediate family. I researched sensory-friendly holiday activities and recipes that Lily could help prepare. I ordered a small turkey that would be manageable for just the three of us, with maybe a few supportive friends. The responses started rolling in within minutes, but I stayed true to my commitment to give myself space. Brian checked his phone periodically, his expression growing more troubled with each message. "They're not taking it well," he reported. "Your mom says you're overreacting. Amelia says you're being selfish right before a holiday. My mom says she was just trying to be helpful and you've misunderstood everything." "And what do you think?" I asked, looking him directly in the eyes. He was quiet for a moment. I think they're wrong. Lily is our daughter, and if they can't make space for her, that's their loss." His answer brought tears to my eyes. After days of uncertainty, he was finally choosing his daughter unequivocally. The following days brought escalating attempts to change my mind. My mother called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that ranged from guilt-inducing, "After all we've done for you and Lily," to minimizing, "It was just a suggestion, not a firm decision." Amelia's approach was more direct. She texted, "You've always been dramatic, but this takes the cake. Nobody said Lily wasn't family. We just thought one meal without accommodating her special needs would be nice. You're ruining the holiday for everyone." I didn't respond, but her words stung. Special needs. As if Lily's neurological differences were some kind of luxury requirement rather than legitimate needs. The most shocking message came from my sister a few days later. "Mom's panicking about the meal. Could you at least drop off your dishes? I'll pay for ingredients. Just write up the heating instructions." It was so tone-deaf I almost laughed. They still didn't get it. This wasn't about the food. It was about respect and inclusion. Diana, my mother-in-law, took a different approach, calling Brian directly and tearfully, claiming she never meant to exclude anyone. "I was just trying to make the day less stressful for everyone, including Lily," she insisted. "You know how overwhelmed she gets." Brian stood firm. "If you're concerned about Lily being overwhelmed, there are many ways to help without excluding her. We could have dinner and shifts create a quiet space, shorten the visit time. But not inviting her at all is not a solution we're willing to accept." I was so proud of him in that moment, articulating exactly what I'd been trying to explain for years. Surprisingly, Uncle Jack reached out with a thoughtful message. "I've been hearing about the Thanksgiving situation from multiple perspectives. I want you to know that I respect your decision to protect Lily. Family should be inclusive, not conditional. Martha and I would love to join you for your celebration if you'd have us. No pressure either way." His support was unexpected and deeply moving. Uncle Jack had always been kind to Lily, but this active allyship meant more than he could know. As the messages continued to pour in, many family members attempted to paint me as the villain, the dramatic one ruining the holiday. It was a familiar tactic, one that had worked on me in the past. This time I refused to internalize their narrative. Brian and I agreed to block notifications from everyone except Uncle Jack, focusing instead on planning our own celebration. We invited a few close friends who had always been understanding of Lily's needs, and Uncle Jack and Aunt Martha. It would be a small gathering, but one where everyone present truly wanted to be there, Lily included. One night as we were finalizing our plans, Brian turned to me with a serious expression. I've been thinking about this all wrong, he admitted. I kept seeing it as being caught between two sides of a family dispute. But it's not that at all. It's about whether Lily is seen as a full person worthy of inclusion or as a problem to be managed. When I look at it that way, there's no question where I stand. His words were healing, bridging the distance that had grown between us in the early days after my mother's text. Together, we committed to creating new traditions that centered our daughter's well-being without sacrificing joy. As Thanksgiving approached, the pressure from family intensified. My mother sent a final plea. Please reconsider. Grandma's china is already out. It won't feel right without your cooking. I composed one last response. This isn't about the food, Mom. It's about Lily being treated as an equal member of this family. When you're ready to include her fully with understanding and accommodation rather than tolerance, we'll be ready to talk about shared holidays again. Until then, we're creating traditions that celebrate who she is, rather than treating her as an inconvenience. I sent the message and turned my attention to preparing for a very different kind of Thanksgiving, one where every person at the table would be fully welcome just as they were. The week of Thanksgiving arrived with a peculiar mix of emotions. There was grief for the broken traditions and family connections, but also a surprising lightness that came with freedom from expectations. For the first time in 12 years, I wasn't juggling multiple shopping lists or coordinating oven schedules with my mother. I wasn't preparing dishes days in advance or calculating exactly how many pounds of potatoes would feed 20+ people. Instead, I was creating something intimate and meaningful for the people who mattered most. Can I help make the stuffing? Lily asked the Monday before Thanksgiving. She had been more engaged with the holiday preparations than ever before, perhaps sensing that this celebration would be different. Absolutely, I told her. We'll make it together tomorrow after school. I'd spent time researching sensory-friendly cooking activities and had discovered that many children with autism who struggled with food textures were more likely to try foods they had helped prepare. The controlled step-by-step nature of following a recipe also appealed to Lily's need for predictability. The next day, we set up a cooking station with clear visual instructions. I pre-measured ingredients into separate bowls, each labeled with a number to indicate the order they would be added. Lily, wearing the child-sized apron and chef's hat I'd ordered specially, followed each step with careful precision. Stir 10 times clockwise, she read from the visual recipe card. She counted each stir aloud, her face a mask of concentration. Perfect, I praised when she completed the step. Now we can add the herbs. Brian, who had taken a rare day off work to be part of our preparations, captured the moment on video. He caught my eye over Lily's head and mouthed, "This is better," with a smile that reached his eyes. He was right. This was better than rushing through preparations while fielding calls from relatives with last-minute requests. This was cooking with joy rather than obligation. On Wednesday, Uncle Jack and Aunt Martha arrived, bringing homemade cranberry sauce and a puzzle they had specifically chosen because it matched Lily's current interest in marine life. We thought we could work on this together after dinner tomorrow, Uncle Jack told Lily carefully, showing her the box without pushing it into her hands, respecting her boundaries in a way that many family members never bothered to learn. Lily studied the puzzle box with interest. It has 75 pieces, she observed. We can sort the edge pieces first. That's exactly right, Uncle Jack agreed, sharing a smile with me. That's always the best way to start. That evening, as we were preparing the final dishes that could be made ahead, my phone lit up with a text from my mother. It's not too late to change your mind. Diana says she didn't mean it that way. We can make room for everyone. The message came with a photo of their Thanksgiving table already set with the family china and grandmother's silver candle holders. The subtext was clear. This is what you're missing. This is what tradition looks like. I showed the message to Brian. They still don't get it, he said, shaking his head. It was never about physical space. It was about making room for Lily as she is not as they wish she would be. I composed a brief response. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. Our decision stands, but I'm open to talking after the holiday about how we might move forward together in a way that respects everyone's needs. I set my phone aside and returned to the kitchen where Lily was carefully arranging vegetables on a tray in a rainbow pattern for our friends who would be joining us the next day. The sight of her working so contentedly, so engaged with the holiday preparations, confirmed that we had made the right choice. Thanksgiving Day dawned clear and crisp. I woke early habit from years of having to start the turkey at dawn, but found myself relaxed rather than stressed. The small turkey for our gathering would take far less time than the enormous birds I usually prepared. Lily came down still in her pajamas carrying her weighted blanket. This was unusual. She typically dressed immediately upon waking uncomfortable with the transition period of sleepwear outside the bedroom. "Can we have breakfast in the living room?" she asked. "Like a picnic." This spontaneous suggestion would have sent me into a tailspin on a typical holiday morning with a tight schedule to maintain. Today, I smiled and said, "That sounds fun, let's do it." The three of us ate French toast on a blanket in front of the fireplace, talking about the day ahead. Lily was excited about her friends coming over, particularly her classmate Zoe, who also had autism and shared her interest in marine biology. "Zoe might want to work on the puzzle too," Lily said. "Is that okay?" "Of course," Brian assured her. "There are plenty of pieces for everyone." As the morning progressed, we prepared the meal together at a leisurely pace. No rushing, no stress. Just the three of us moving around the kitchen in a comfortable rhythm. Brian took charge of the turkey following the recipe I had simplified for him. Lily helped set the table carefully, placing each fork exactly 1 inch from the edge, measuring with the ruler we provided for this purpose. By the time our guests arrived, Uncle Jack and Aunt Martha, my friend Danielle, and her husband and Lily's friend Zoe with her parents, everything was ready without the frantic last-minute rush that had characterized every holiday meal I could remember. Our celebration was nothing like the formal affairs at my mother's house. We served the meal buffet style rather than passing dishes around a crowded table. We had quiet background music that Lily had selected. We used paper plates with colorful designs rather than grandmother's china, eliminating the anxiety of potential breakage. Most importantly, we incorporated accommodations for Lily naturally, without drawing attention to them or making them seem like impositions. There was a designated quiet space in the den where anyone could take a break. We had headphones available for when the noise level rose. We scheduled a puzzle break between dinner and dessert for anyone feeling restless from sitting too long. To my amazement, several of our adult guests used these accommodations too. Danielle's husband, an introvert, expressed appreciation for the quiet space. Zoe's father used the scheduled break to stretch his back, which had been bothering him. "These are just good hosting practices," Aunt Martha commented. "Everyone has needs, some are just more obvious than others." As we gathered around the table to eat, I glanced at my phone one last time before putting it away for the meal. There was a new Instagram post from my sister showing their Thanksgiving gathering. Forced smiles, formal attire, and at the center of the table, store-bought pies still in their bakery containers. The caption read, "Traditional family Thanksgiving missing at Serenity's. Cooking famous pumpkin pie this year, though." I should have felt vindicated, or perhaps smug that their meal was visibly less special without my cooking. Instead, I felt a wave of sadness for what they were missing. Not my culinary contributions, but the authentic joy of a gathering where everyone truly belonged. I put my phone away and looked around our table. Lily was laughing at something Uncle Jack had said. Brian was deep in conversation with Zoe's parents about inclusive education. Aunt Martha was sneaking an extra roll with a conspiratorial wink in my direction. This wasn't the Thanksgiving I had planned at the beginning of the month. It was better. It was real. And for the first time in years, I was fully present rather than constantly monitoring for potential problems or judgments. We'd created something new, a tradition centered on acceptance rather than expectation. And looking at my daughter's relaxed, happy face, I knew we would never go back to the way things were before. Spring had arrived, painting our neighborhood with cherry blossoms and daffodils. Nearly 6 months had passed since that pivotal Thanksgiving, when we had chosen to create our own traditions, rather than accept the exclusion of our daughter. The holidays had continued in much the same vein. We declined Christmas dinner with the extended family instead, hosting a small sensory-friendly celebration at our home, with the same supportive circle we had gathered for Thanksgiving. Lily had thrived during the season, participating in holiday activities with unprecedented enthusiasm, now that they had been adapted to her needs, rather than forcing her to conform to neurotypical expectations. The initial weeks after our Thanksgiving decision had been tense. My mother had alternated between guilt-inducing messages and wounded silence. Amelia had been openly angry, accusing me of dividing the family. Diana had insisted to Brian that she had been misunderstood, that she had only been trying to help. We held firm to our boundaries, responding with consistent, calm messages that we were open to reconciliation when they were ready to include Lily fully and respectfully. The first sign of change came in January, when my mother called with a different tone. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began hesitantly, "about Lily being treated as an equal member of the family. I found some books about autism and sensory processing. I've been reading them." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start, an indication that she was finally trying to understand, rather than simply expecting Lily to change. Over the following months, small shifts occurred. My father called to ask if Lily might like to help him in his workshop, remembering her interest in building things. He had prepared visual instructions for a simple birdhouse project and had noise-canceling headphones ready for when the power tools were in use. "I thought about how she likes things step by step," he explained, "and I remembered how she covers her ears with loud noises." His thoughtfulness brought tears to my eyes. This was the kind of consideration we had been asking for all along. Amelia remained the most resistant, still insisting that we had overreacted to a simple suggestion. But even she had shown signs of growth when she called to invite Lily to her son Jackson's birthday party. "I've arranged for a quiet room where she can take breaks," Amelia said. "And I checked with the venue. They can make plain cheese pizza without herbs the way she likes it." These were small steps, but meaningful ones. Our extended family was beginning to understand that including Lily didn't mean merely tolerating her presence. It meant actively creating an environment where she could participate comfortably. Brian's mother, Diana, was the slowest to come around. Her pride made it difficult for her to acknowledge that her suggestion to exclude Lily had been hurtful and inappropriate. But even she had begun to make efforts, sending Lily a package of sensory-friendly fidget toys for her birthday, with a note that said simply, "I'm learning." As relations with extended family slowly healed, something unexpected happened. Our immediate family unit grew stronger. The boundary setting that had been so difficult for me had ultimately been liberating. I was no longer contorting myself to meet everyone else's expectations at the expense of my own well-being and Lily's needs. Brian had become more protective of both Lily and me, quick to step in when family members slipped back into old patterns of dismissing or minimizing autism-related accommodations. "That doesn't work for us," he would say firmly, a simple phrase that set clear boundaries without inviting argument. Lily herself had flourished in the less stressful family dynamic. With reduced pressure to conform to neurotypical social expectations, at large family gatherings, she had more emotional energy for developing her interests and skills. Her teachers noted improvements in her ability to self-regulate and communicate her needs. Perhaps the most unexpected development was my own transformation. For years, my identity within the family had been centered around my cooking. I was the holiday meal provider, the keeper of traditions, the one who nourished everyone physically, while often neglecting my own emotional needs. With that role voluntarily set aside, I discovered new aspects of myself. I started a blog about cooking for children with sensory sensitivities, sharing recipes and adaptations that had worked for Lily. What began as a personal project gained a following of parents grateful for practical advice from someone who understood their challenges. "You've helped me make mealtime enjoyable again," one mother wrote. "My son tried new foods for the first time because of your visual recipe cards." Comments like these healed something in me that I hadn't realized was wounded. The part that had internalized family members' suggestions that accommodating Lily was somehow excessive or indulgent. Here was evidence that our approach wasn't just necessary for Lily, but could help other families too. As spring progressed, we began tentative discussions about the upcoming holiday season. My mother suggested hosting a family reunion in the summer, with all the accommodations Lily might need, We'll think about it. I told her, no longer automatically saying yes to family obligations. I'd need to see specific plans for how her sensory needs would be addressed. My mother didn't bristle at this requirement as she once might have. Instead, she asked for resources and suggestions. I want to get it right this time, she said. Brian and I discussed this development over dinner after Lily had gone to bed. Do you think they've really changed? He asked. Or is this just to get your cooking back at the table? I considered the question seriously. I think they're trying each in their own way. And that's a start. But we keep our boundaries firm regardless. He nodded. Package deal. All of us respected and included, or none of us. Exactly, I agreed. And if it doesn't work out with the extended family, we know we can create meaningful celebrations on our own terms. We've proven that. This was perhaps the most profound lesson from our holiday revolution family, isn't defined by obligation or tradition alone. True family accepts all members unconditionally, accommodating differences with love rather than resentment. As I looked toward future gatherings, I felt neither dread nor the weight of expectation. Instead, I felt empowered to create celebrations that honored everyone present, including myself and especially my daughter, who deserved nothing less than full inclusion and respect. The journey from people-pleasing to boundary setting had not been easy, but standing up for Lily had taught me to stand up for myself as well. In choosing her, I had also finally chosen me. The journey I've shared with you today has transformed not just how my family celebrates holidays, but how I understand what family truly means. Looking back at that text message that excluded my daughter, I now see it as the catalyst for necessary change that was long overdue. True inclusion isn't about physical space at a table. It's about creating environments where everyone can participate authentically, where differences are accommodated without resentment, and where no one is made to feel like their presence is conditional. For those of you watching who might be facing similar struggles with family members who don't understand or accept your child's neurodiversity, I want you to know that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. You are not dividing your family by requiring respect for your child. Others are doing that by making inclusion conditional. Creating our own traditions was initially born from exclusion, but it has become a beautiful choice that better serves our family. Lily no longer approaches holidays with anxiety, but with excitement. She's not just tolerated at our gatherings, she's centered, valued, and understood. Some of our extended family members have begun the work of genuine understanding, while others remain resistant to change. I've learned that I can maintain connections with those who are trying without compromising on my non-negotiable respect for my daughter, exactly as she is. The most unexpected gift of this difficult experience has been finding my voice. For too long, I believed that keeping peace meant silencing my own needs and Lily's. I now understand that true peace can only exist where there is mutual respect and accommodation. I'd like to end with a question for you. Where in your life might you be accepting conditional inclusion for yourself or someone you love? What would it look like to create spaces where everyone truly belongs? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share with others who might need to hear that it's okay to choose respect over tradition. Thank you for listening to our story, and remember, the most meaningful family bonds are those built on acceptance, not obligation. I'm sending strength to anyone facing similar challenges this holiday season.